Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I am Angela Warren, your Director of Faith Development. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. You may have noticed the morning altar that we build each week. It's part of our personal congregational living tradition as we create beauty on Sunday mornings together. We also, we're practicing singing the children out if we have them in the sanctuary on Sunday mornings. We either will or will not, depending on who shows up, and you'll hear more about that from Linda Groat later. As Unitarian Universalists, we are people of the wide path, engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and coming together to make a difference. We're so glad you've chosen to be here, virtually and in person. Throughout the month of October, we are exploring the topic of courage. Today is UN Sunday, where we celebrate with other congregations, UU congregations, the creation of the United Nations in 1945, and how we as Unitarian Universalists can both support the UN and hold it accountable to its ideals. For those gathered in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on reverence mode, preferably airplane mode, silencing them so that you and all may be fully present and free from distraction. We begin our service by creating sacred space. We do that by lighting the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Sam the man will come and light our chalice for us this morning. You can't say the words and pour the water at the same time. So I'll pour the water again. Okay.
We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river, for with our shared force we can travel towards oceans of meaning and seas of connection. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on land that was nurtured and cherished by the First Nations people of this region, the Haudenosaunee, and the people known as the Neutrals before them. We offer this libation as our giveaway symbol of our respect for deep and connection with the land. May we be good stewards of the land and courageously cultivate community with all living things.
The earth has returned. She is living, breathing, realizing her breath was leaving. She was needing us to remember her worth, to recognize her worth all over again. We used to be her friends. We used to help her heal us. And then she lost all trust and faith in us. She has returned, mad, saddened. However, she's empowered by this new commitment we are signing on to. She wants you, me, and the rest of the human beings who populate this planet to never take her for granted again, If she is dying, then who wins? If Earth is dying, who really wins? She is providing for species. We live in a cycle that provides for one another. You and I, we are Earth's sisters and brothers. We must take care of one another. Her lungs are smothered with toxins, radioactive chemicals, and plastic she cannot digest. She has cancerous garbage in her breasts. We have polluted Earth to death. Unless we take a step forward and reverse our damaging effects. Our next steps should be radical movements that peacefully changes things with civility. We have the ability Earth is alive. We can't let her die. I want my earth back. I want my earth back. I want my earth back. I want to take each of our solutions and spin them into 180-degree revolutions. We all have effective contributions. We need to turn our passion into action, execution. Drum circles, live spoken word theater, or even getting arrested. We are all a collective that can't be defeated, Immediate action is needed. Is needed. What about our children? What about future generations? Who is going to save the lungs of the ecosystem? Toxic water slaughters the frogs and the fish. Imagine how much they wished we didn't pollute their habitats. Clean water, clean air, imagine that. We need our earth back. She returns. We need our earth back. It is her turn.
We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will be with one another. Please join me as we affirm the sacred promises we have pledged. Together, we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. Each of us carries with us into this time cares and concerns, joys and sorrows. Together we create the container where we can put down our burdens, knowing they are held gently by this gathered community. For those joining virtually, I invite you to give voice to that which is on your heart, or perhaps type it into the chat in the live stream. For those here in the chapel, I invite you to come forward and place a stone or shell on the table labyrinth in recognition of that which is on your heart.
I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love. No matter where you go, no matter where you've been, you'll never walk alone. I feel you deep within.
I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love.
No matter what you feel or what you choose to show, I'm always there for you, and so I want you to know.
I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love.
Please join me in this communal response. In this gathered community, we hold one another and the world in love. I'd like to invite Linda Groat up for a moment.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I've heard a little buzz about, radical welcoming. I haven't been told the formal definition of radical welcoming, but I don't really need it because I can imagine to myself that it's something really exciting and different and out there, and we want to pull people in and make them feel really comfortable and welcome. My view on that is that it starts at the very earliest stages of people's lives. At our faith development meeting last Sunday, we realized that the true importance of being ready to welcome newcomers of all ages and having functional, reliable, predictable, and fun programming for youth is at the core of our congregation. This is an essential family ministry, vital to the growth of our congregation. Parents must feel comfortable, parents and guardians, and welcome and safe in order to set down roots in our community. This begins on their very first visit, when they're scoping us out, seeing if it's going to be a home where they can be, and then if they feel comfortable, they place their children in our care, and then they sit down to enjoy their first service. The Unitarian Universalist Association safety guidelines require 2 adults in each classroom. Currently, our youth are using the space next to the atrium where we moved a little bit further over so we could keep the door shut so that we could have a lot of fun and not bother everybody. So we need 2 people in each age group, and because we are one-room schoolhouse right now, we have a lot of variability in developmental level, activity level, and safety level, because some of the little ones will put things in their mouth that the older ones are using. So we have to have at least 2 adults in each space. So currently, during services each week, Shauna, my daughter Shauna, and I have been volunteering to look for kids that are here and going out with them. There's a few that come regularly, about 5 to 10, no, maybe not 10, 5 to 8 kids come regularly with visitors. What we were doing is just focusing on building relationships and community between children and just helping them have fun and enjoy their time here. We need to build a team of 6 to 8 adults, 18 years of age and older, so that we have 2 pairs of people signed up each week to provide supervision and companionship to these groups during service. We need probably 4 each week, so that also with an on-call list, so that we can have people that, or if somebody can't come, somebody could step in. We need nursery care, approximately 0 to 4 years, and then older kids, approximately 5 and up. Shauna will be in the nursery most weeks as one of the adults. She's now 18 years old, but she does need somebody else to be helpful to her. This is a very fun job, and the children will fill your heart with joy. They are the spirit of life itself and will make their own fun and learning. Our job there is just to guide their play, to intervene gently when they argue or fuss, and help them to develop their own understanding of our principles through their play. For example, everyone has a voice in the game of Sorry, which is what we played last week. Right now, there is no formal curriculum, only games and self-directed activities. The kids that we have coming most often engage easily with each other, and the time goes very quickly, about 45 minutes from when we are sung out until the end of service. This is a very doable thing, and you certainly will grow from it if you volunteer, and I hope you do, because the reality is we can't function without each other. We are each other. What affects one of us affects all of us. And a plug for coffee hour too, we need help in that area. Radical welcoming starts with making people feel comfortable and being part of the community, and it benefits the person who's helping just as much as it benefits the person who's being helped. And the jobs that we have are not hard. They just need somebody to show up, be reliable. Please give some serious thought to participating in this essential family ministry. We can all be part of the lives of our children and families, and we all have something to share. The children deeply appreciate this connection, and I know mine do. Mine love to be with you guys. They just love it. It enriches all of us. So please contact me or Angela with questions and to sign up. There isn't any formal way to do that. Just reach out your hand and we will take it. Thank you.
Our time for all ages today is a story called Toad is the Uncle of Heaven, retold by Jean M. Lee. In Vietnam, when you wish to show respect to someone, you call that person uncle. This old legend tells how it came to be that one day the King of Heaven called an ugly toad uncle. Once upon a time, there was a long, devastating drought on earth. Plants yellowed and withered away. Animals suffered and died. Each day, more and more living things perished, and there was no sign of rain from heaven. In a half-dried pond, an ugly toad struggled to live among parched lily pads. The toad dug a hole in the mud. He was comfortable, protected from the scorching sun, but he was worried. In a few days, this mud will dry, then my moist body will dry, he thought. Then the toad had an idea. I must go see the one who makes rain, the King of Heaven. It was absurd for a toad to seek an audience with the King of Heaven, but the toad decided he must be brave and make the trip. If he didn't, he would perish, along with all the other creatures on earth. He hopped out of his mud hole and began the long trip to heaven. On the edge of the pond, he saw a swarm of bees searching for nectar among the dried flowers. The toad felt sorry for them, and he stopped to talk to them. Something is up with I think we were missing some pictures. I apologize. He told him of his plan to go to the King of Heaven and ask for rain. After a quick conference, the bees decided to go with Toad. The toad hopped along with the bees buzzing at his side. Passing a desolate farm, the travelers met a sad rooster who had buried his last chick that morning. Soon I too shall die, said the rooster. There is not a grain of rice anywhere. Even the farmers are starving. When the rooster heard of the courageous trip to heaven, he was eager to join the group. Through dried and dusty rice fields, they went on together. Everywhere, they saw suffering and death. At the foot of a mountain, they came upon a tired tiger, his tongue hanging out from thirst. I have been hungry and thirsty for so many days, complained the tiger, and there is still no sign of rain. Then the toad told him of their journey to heaven to seek rain. Like the rooster and the bees, the tiger wanted to go with them. The other animals were very glad to have such a mighty companion. The animals continued their journey until they reached the highest mountain peak. From there, they jumped to a cloud. The toad and the rooster clung to the back of the tiger, with the bees buzzing along behind them. They jumped from cloud to cloud toward heaven. At last, they arrived at the heavenly gate. Stealthily, they went in looking for the King of Heaven. They found His Majesty in a huge hall, sitting on his golden throne. The toad asked his friends to stand guard at the door. Then he took a long hop inside the hall. Alas, the toad hopped too far. Instead of landing at His Majesty's feet, he ended up in his lap, and the King of Heaven jumped up in shock. The toad fell to the floor. He was hurt and afraid, but he gathered all his strength and loudly croaked, "Your Majesty." "Guards, seize the intruder," shouted the king. The toad had just enough time to leap away while calling as loud as he could, "Bees, bees, help!" The bees flew into the hall, stinging the surprised guards. Soon the angry king was left alone with the ugly toad and his friend, the bees. Once more the toad gathered his courage and started to plead his case. "Your Majesty, we—" "Thunder God, quiet this impudent toad," ordered the king, trembling with rage. Suddenly the whole court shook with thunder. The rooster heard the noise and rushed into the hall, and there he let out the shrillest screech. The thunder god dropped his drum and mallet, covered his ears, and begged the rooster to stop. The King of Heaven could not believe his defeat. Before the toad had a chance to collect his courage, the king bellowed, "Hound of Heaven, take these worthless animals away!" A monstrous beast appeared. The rooster was the first to call, "Help, help, tiger, quick!" while the toad hopped around the room with the hideous hound chasing after him. Calmly, the tiger entered. The two beasts began to fight. Cheered on by his friends, the tiger fought hard. Finally, he held the hound under his paws and was about to sink his teeth into the beast's throat when the King of Heaven cried out, "Stop! Uncle Toad, tell your friend to spare my hound." Flattered that the King of Heaven had called him uncle, the toad spoke softly to the tiger, "Let the monster go. I think His Majesty will hear us now." The King of Heaven had indeed been respectful to the ugly toad. The animals then described the drought on earth. "Rain is needed at once, Your Majesty," said the toad, "or all living things on earth will die." "I understand. Let there be rain in heaven and earth at this very moment," ordered the King of Heaven. Then, looking at the disorder of his court and the defeated subjects, the king shook his head and said to Toad, "Uncle Toad, next time when you need rain, you do not have to come all the way to these heavenly courts. Just croak, and I will know to send you rain." The toad is a symbol of rain in Vietnam. When Uncle Toad croaks, rain will soon follow. We wish it were that simple, or not so simple. I'm really happy to have Ellen Moomaw join us today to offer a reflection. The first time I met Ellen, it was a green sanctuary field trip to Alabama swamp, and she just appeared out of nowhere. She showed up. It was the neatest thing. She found us. We were like in the middle of nowhere, and there she showed up. And she has shown up here since approximately 1981 as a member. She was RE director for a stint, has sung in the choir, especially participated during that pandemic, helping Reverend Michelle and Adam, our music ministry, and actually Les and Andy and everybody record music for our services. And most recently, she's volunteered to show up as our envoy to the UU at UN, which you'll be hearing more about in her reflection. So we thank Ellen for being here, and go ahead.
Thank you, Angela. Today we celebrate United Nations Sunday, created on October 24th, a day tomorrow, 1945. It was begun following World War II, when 51 countries met in San Francisco to create the United Nations, where they drafted and signed its charter. When these 51 countries signed the charter, they became member states of the UN and committed their government and peoples to, quote, maintain international peace and integrity, end quote, as well as to the Charter's other purposes and principles. Today, there are 193 member states in the UN. The United Nations has four main purposes. First is to keep peace throughout the world. The second, to develop friendly relations among nations. Third, to help nations work together to improve the lives of poor people, to conquer hunger, disease, and illiteracy, and to encourage respect for each other's rights and freedoms. And the fourth, to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations to achieve these goals. In the last 5 years, the UN's impact has been felt through its work providing accurate information on critical global issues such as climate change through the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, through the World Health Organization giving us guidance in our health and well-being, and through the International Organization of Migration, which helps us separate facts from disinformation in the ongoing global mitigation crisis. That's a little history of that, and we'll have a little interlude now from Bruce Knotts, who is the director of the UN.
Happy UN Sunday from the UU office at the United Nations. This year, we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of our office advocating for UU values on the global stage since 1962. By engaging every day with member states and civil society and speaking out in defense of human rights and in protection of our planet, our UU office has become a force to be reckoned with at the UN. We're working with the UN community to address the global prevalence of violent repression of political opponents, minority groups, and others by increasingly militarized police forces. We know that only through collaboration and mutual support can our world address the most pressing issues of our time. The international community must come together to solve global problems like climate change. Finding the right solutions to global problems isn't easy. It takes all of us on this planet to work together. The most important organization that can convene the entire world to focus on global issues is the United Nations. Solutions must also come from the communities that are most impacted by the changing climate and other global events. Our office at the UN is proud to be able to help representatives of those communities get access to the decision-making tables so that their perspectives can be heard. None of this would be possible without the generous support of Unitarian Universalists. The UU office at the UN relies on congregational and individual donations to continue its work. Please donate generously to sustain this important presence at the UN. Thank you so much for your generosity. Your gifts can truly make a global impact.
More about the UUA office at the UN. The UUA office at the UN has an important influence. Its strong presence helps shift global policy towards peace, justice, and liberation for all. Representing the interests and values of Unitarian Universalists in our UUA Association and the Canadian Unitarian Council, the UU at UN's advocacy at the United Nations is guided by statements and resolutions adopted by those bodies at UUA General Assemblies, which happen in June, and CUC national conferences. We're very proud of our UU presence and leadership at the UN. It serves, the UU at UN serves on the Committee of Human Rights, Disarmament, Peace and Security, Sustainable Development, Migration, and Freedom of Religion or Belief. Committees are, these are all the committees that we're involved in, and Director Bruce Knotts is taking a leadership role in many of them. Every year, there is a spring UU at UN conference for adults and teens near the UN at the UU at UN office in New York City. This past year, the topic was climate-forced disarmament, which is when humans have no choice but to leave the land due to the long-lasting effects of climate change. Climate change has been an increasing threat and can be seen globally in natural disasters, including coastal flooding, droughts, crop failures, and wildfires. Unfortunately, climate change is not currently recognized by the United Nations as a cause for someone to qualify as a refugee. Therefore, legal protections are needed on an international level to affirm the rights of these millions on the move, which in 2021 totaled 23.7 million people. that were triggered to move because of disaster. Unitarian Universalists have been taking action to protect the earth for decades. Now is the time to prepare to protect ourselves and the people of our world community from climate-forced displacement by building communities of care to prepare for climate disasters. What are the climate disasters that could impact our community? Which of our neighbors would be impacted the most, and how? We need to begin thinking about climate warming and proposing an action plan. One of the ways to help would be to have no idling zones in our cities and towns. So that would start limiting CO2, which is so prevalent in our atmosphere now, and will not simply disappear even after we start limiting the CO2. Another action we can do as a congregation or as maybe the Green Justice Team is to sign on to the UU Statement of Commitment in response to climate-forced displacement. This is a letter that was written by the UU at UN committee, and by signing, that committee and therefore our congregation can join UUs across the country in helping our UUA office at the UN bring this before the United Nations. And so I will ask that perhaps at their next meeting we can have that discussion start. And so many more, I'm sure, that come to your mind are ways that we can help the climate. As UN envoy at the United Nations, or UU envoy at the United Nations, I will hear more about this and be reporting to you about what they are doing and ways in which we can help what they're doing at our local level. Let us pray for UN Sunday with a prayer written by Reverend Morgan R. McLean of the UU at UN. We give thanks today for all that is our lives. On this day of thinking globally, we acknowledge the privileged comforts in which we live and vow again to be generous and grateful. Today, we pray for the earth and all of its creation. We feel the pain of our precious web of life, challenged by the human-made climate crisis. Today, we forgive ourselves for our contributions to this crisis and to recommit to action on behalf of the water, the creatures, the plants, and our people and all people. Struggling to breathe, they're failing to thrive, disappearing and being displaced by the changing earth. Today, we honor the United Nations for the generations of coming together in a hurting world, working toward a vision of peace, equality, and dignity on a healthy planet. We give thanks for centuries of Unitarian Universalists who have honored the inherent worth and dignity of every person and brought us to this moment of our faith, prepared to work tirelessly for justice and a sustainable life for all. Let us not despair. Let us feel the strength of our community around us, rising in hope and rising in action. Let us put our passion into action. Let us change the world. Thus may it be. Amen.
Good morning. Good morning. Always like to hear something back. Yes, I am the elected board president. This was one of the bags I get to hold. Board presidents get to hold A lot of bags. The reason I mention elected is because as I was listening to Linda, I wanted to mention that over the last couple of years, I have ended up filling in on the board for people's terms and things like that. And why is that important? Because before the pandemic, I was asked to fill out a term. I came onto the board and they said, hey, Randy, faith development's the only thing left, so you're the liaison. Might not have been my first choice, but I ended up helping out in the classroom as Linda was discussing and explaining, and actually turned out to be a good experience. Turns out I like kids after all. Never thought that would happen. 2 of my own, so Anyway, I would encourage you to volunteer and do that. I got a lot out of it, including a lot of pleasant memories from my childhood here. So, the special congregational meeting, next Sunday, the 30th, in person only. We are voting on 2 things. The final wording on the sign, or as Bruce put it, the tagline. There will be 2 choices as to what is on the sign as far as how we're referring to us. I will remind everyone that this does not change the name of the church. We are incorporated under religious corporation laws in New York State, but it will be what's on the sign as we want people to see it. Oh, by the way, for the meeting, we need a quorum of 50 people. For something to pass, you need 75% of those voting to vote yes. If you vote no, obviously you're voting no. If you abstain, that also means you're voting no because that gets counted into things. As far as that goes, it'd be a real shame if we didn't have a quorum, because then we can't go forward with the sign that people have been working on for years and contributing to. So I expect you'll all be there. The second thing on that is a revision to the church bylaws. After the service, we're going to have a circle where I can go on at length, about why we're doing that. The short version is this. We need to straighten out our finances. And for various reasons, going back to a calendar year for our fiscal financial year is important to make things better and to take care of that. And I'll just mention that for the first 50 years or so of the church, it was a calendar year. There is one other thing I wanted to mention. I used to be good at communication, maybe I'm not anymore. I was out of town last week, so I had a legitimate excuse for not being here. A couple of folks that were here that were aware of things indicated to me that maybe a wrong impression was given regarding Angela's departure. So I just wanted to say that when you get to be board chair, you get to follow up on interesting things. So last August, it was suggested to me that Angela was interested in leaving. So naturally, I arranged to see her, and we sat outside at that picnic table, almost as nice a day as this one, and she explained to me that that was her intention. And during the course of that, I said something that should have come out to the effect of, given what I'm being told about our finances by the finance committee and some of the board members, we might not have the budget in 2023 for a faith development director. The point of all this is it's a decision that Angela made prior to me saying anything about money. By the way, this does not mean that the board doesn't want us to have a faith development director. Doesn't mean that we won't have one. Doesn't mean that we will. There are 2 things that go into, there was a lot of things that go into it, but basically there's 2 things about having a faith development director. One, we can't control, which is who's out there and what they would accept. And 2 is whether we have the money, the financing. The second one is one we can control. So basically, as you may or may not have read in the foreword, we will be starting a pledge drive next month. The previous board had a 6-month pledge drive, i.e. to carry us through the end of this calendar year. So regardless of what happens at the meeting, we're going to have a pledge drive, and it's going to be for 12 months because we need the money. So whose responsibility is it as to whether we have faith development or some other things? It's the congregations, which is all of us, not just the board, not just the finance committee, it's each and every one of us. So those of you who can remember farther back know that I spent entirely too many years running the pledge drive here. That's just a personal, thing. And what I learned from that was that if you really want to have a successful pledge drive, you have to tell people how much money you need, and you also have to have as many people participating in it as possible. 2 or 3 people can't do it. Yeah, I know there's fewer of us and all that, but the ideal is to have basically half the church in the pledge drive, which only leaves the other half. So what I'm saying is we would all like faith development. There's a couple other things we would like. It's up to all of us whether we get that or not. The other thing I will say is that when the board was installed, we went with the call and response, and at one point, something to the effect of the congregation pledged that they would help the board out when needed. And some brash fellow said, count on being asked. You're being asked now. Next week, on the 30th, I would like to have people come and say, yes, I am willing to participate in the pledge drive and help out. And again, yes, we all need to raise our pledges, but we also all need to be able to talk to other people about it and to do some of the other things that are necessary to make it work. A little too personal, I vowed years ago that after 7 years in a row of doing a pledge drive, I would not be involved in one. And it looks like I'm going back on my word. But I really care about this place, and I really think we are the custodians, and we need to take care of it. Thanks. Sorry for taking up so much time.
All right. I forgot to wear this during the story, so I think we need a little comic relief right now. So here we go. Here's my frog hat. This actually belonged to Vic Doino, a beloved member who passed years ago, and his wife Ellen is still a member of this church.